So, hello everyone. This is April 16th, and we are so blessed tonight to have an old friend of mine, Hans Wilhelm, as our infinite wisdom guest. And as you probably read, Hans is extremely talented, and he's also extremely wise and clever. And he has a way, it's true. He has a way of talking about the most complex universal laws in a way that you can grasp. And part of his magic is that he draws those things out. And I can't tell you how many times I have watched them and go, oh, that's how it works. Exactly. You have a concept in your head, but then he draws it out very patiently, very kindly, and you walk away going, I get it now. So welcome, Hans. Thanks so much for coming and talking to this beautiful community tonight.
Hope, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to see you again. You mentioned 10 years ago. I also watched the video we did 10 years ago with Barbara and Rosemary. And I must say, your wave thing, infinite wave, must be working very well because you look as young now as you looked in that video. And it's quite amazing. So you are the proof that the message that you share with the world is actually working. So I'm happily delighted to be here with you and meet your friends. And let's see where this evening will take us. It will be interesting. And I think I just want to say what you explained already, what I usually do. And I draw very simply these things out here. Like, for instance, karma. When somebody hits another person, it is stored in their body, in their soul, and in the Akashic records, and as well as in the planets. And eventually they return back to the sender. When you see this, it makes so much more sense because it makes more sense to me. I have problems reading IKEA instructions without pictures. I have to see how in a unit 1 fits to unit B and so on. Then it makes total sense to me. So I'm making these little very short videos for myself so that I understand what it means, the chakras, what it means, the cause of and effect, the cause of the law of projection, and so on. And when I see it, it is more clearer in my own head. And then I share these little videos, and they are totally free. I don't sell anything in these videos, and there's no advertisements. It's just a sort of little service of joy, which I do because I know that a lot of people like yourself, Hope, find it very helpful to see how visually how all the dots connect. And when one sees the perfection of how everything works together, I'm continuously at awe. And as Gabriela, my teacher, always says, God is ingenious simplicity. And how simple everything fits together is, I think, the most amazing thing. It is the organized religions which make everything so very complicated and very difficult. But the actual teaching of spirituality is straightforward and very clear.
Well, I could not agree more. I am constantly trying to take the simple path, and so I completely agree with you on that. So let's ask Hans, can you bring us back? Let us get to know you a little bit, because actually I don't know your background, like way, way, way back, and where you began to be intrigued with the spirituality and that sort of thing. Can you sort of help us understand?
Yeah, I will make it shorter. As a young person, I didn't believe the religious teachings, the church. I grew up in Germany, although my parents were never very religious, but the religious teaching didn't make much sense to me. It was only when I was sort of 19, when I suddenly come into contact with the teachings of Edgar Cayce. And suddenly, for the first time, I heard the word reincarnation and karma. And suddenly, everything made sense just by these two simple things, karma and reincarnation. Now, suddenly, I understood why some people were poor, some were rich, somebody, whatever they were. There was no God who suddenly had favorite, who make somebody rich and somebody poor. God is love. And whatever happens, what we ever do to ourselves and to other people, actually forms and creates who we are now and what life we are leading now. Suddenly it made all sense. And I studied Edgar Cayce thoroughly as much as I could. went to other paths, Course in Miracles, Conversation with God, Rudolf Steiner, and many, many others. And but some 40 years ago, I came across some teachings from a wonderful woman in Germany. Her name is Gabriele, and she channeled, she prophetized, whatever you may call it, the highest teachings from the divine world, from divinity. And she has such an enormous volume of books. There's only a small section is here. There's a whole library in Germany called the Sophia Library, where all her work is actually stored. And her books are available in many different languages. But again, it is there is no organization to join. There are no teachers. She says there will be no teachers. She died last year, but there will be no teachers. It is only the material itself which the people can use, because the path should be directly between God and the person, and no one else in between. Christ, yes, Christ and God being sort of the same. So there is no organization to join, nothing, no teacher, etc., no hierarchy, no dues, no payments, whatever it is. And I like that very much. And what I was struck by so much was that these teachings are so very clear. You know, anybody who read Edgar Cayce or Rudolf Steiner, you have to read the sentence 3 times before you actually know what he might mean. Here we have a very clear, direct language, easy to understand. And I enjoyed that very, very much. And so that is the basis of my knowledge. And I was never interested in sharing that with the world. I am an author and illustrator, and I've written over 200 books, mostly for young people, for young children. But I kept this whole spiritual part of myself very much to myself. Although I must admit, in most of my books, somehow there is a spiritual or higher message somehow included. But it was only when my father died many years ago, and he slowly died, and we children were around him during these past few days. He was here on earth, but he did not believe in life after death. He was absolutely sure about it. He was a soldier in the Second World War. He has seen so much death, and he was convinced that the moment the person is no longer breathing, this is the end of the person, and there is no consciousness continuing at whatever. And he was absolutely happy with that, to die that way and just to be no longer existent. But when he was nearly gone, just a few days before he sort of died, I had an opportunity to be with him alone. And I told him, look, Dad, I know that you don't believe in life after death, but just in case there may be a life after death, here are sort of the 10 points which you may experience. So don't be surprised. And then I listed sort of 10 points, which usually happens when people die and go on to the other side. And after I was done, she sort of smiled a little bit and says, yeah, that's your mystery. That's your stories. I don't believe that nonsense anyway. And then a few days later, he died. Now, I totally forgot about that. Absolutely never even thought about it that I did this. 5 years later, I was in a bookstore, and some stranger came up to me and says, I saw you entering the store. And the moment you entered, your father came to me, because I'm a medium. And the father came to me and says, go to this man over there and thank him for what he told me before I died.
Oh
Because
my.
whatever he told me was right. And it helped me so much to
Ah,
find my bearings on the other side. And then he says, I'm now working on the receiving end of souls that have died. And I see the utter confusion of people who think they're not even aware that they're dead, many of them. And they're so confused. Would I please write books about what I know and share this with other people? And he gave me a lot of other personal stuff as well. So I knew it was definitely my father without any doubt. So I thought about it. I didn't want to write another book about this because I was trying to reach young people because old dogs don't really learn new tricks. But young people, and I remember when I was 16, 18 and wanted to know more about life, and I couldn't because there was no internet. So I decided to make short little YouTube videos, 5-10 minutes long, just geared mainly for young people to explain the simple spiritual laws. And that's what I started some 13 years ago. And I'm still doing them. I just nearly finished one today. So I've continuously fun doing that, sharing that. and it has become so popular. Now I've got 20 million people watching it. So it is a very interesting kind of journey, which used to be or is my hobby still or sideline, but it is something where I exposing a side of myself, which I have kept to myself for most part of my life.
Wow. Wow. I have to say, first of all, I really relate to the several things. One is the timing of when you started to be curious and heard about reincarnation and karma, because I was about the same age. And for me, the penny dropped in the same way. And I went, oh, wait a second, because I also had walked away from any organized religion at the time. But uh, this having this message from your father is so powerful, and that you listened, and you didn't write, but you did what you could do, and in that way you have served, well, 20 million people. That's pretty impressive. I also really like what you said about the simplicity. And I wonder if you could spell the name, or I'm going to put it in the chat, the name of your teacher with
Her
all the.
name is Gabriele, Gabriele. You won't find her really on the internet, even if her work is gigantic. But there is a Gabriele-publishing-house.com where all her books are. And maybe we can put that under the later on. That's basically the only address I can give where people can see her work. As I said, there isn't really an organization that is sort of really directly you can join and promote or whatever, but that is the publishing house is the one. Or the other thing is go to the Sophia Library in Germany, Sophia Library in Germany. Just Google it and you see all her work there. And that connects you also to other websites and also to television stations and radio stations, which are in English and are going 24 hours. And
Oh,
I find them very powerful and I listen to them all the time. And they're going to have a wonderful kind of Easter service now, Easter session. It's not really a service because we don't believe in traditions, which is very interesting. Because I'm married to a Jewish woman, and we just did the Passover here because that is tradition in a Jewish household, and that's absolutely fine. And I watched it, but I see how when you cling so much to the past, there is just no real growth.
yes.
And that is, I think, not only in the Jewish traditions, which are really, they thrive on tradition, but we also have Christian traditions, Muslim traditions, and all the kind of traditions. But tradition, Gabriele always says, bind us. They do not make us grow. They're against growth. And you cannot really grow when you cling up on the old stories. And if you want to honor your ancestors in one way or the other, the best way is to become a good human being. Don't sort of don't try on their stories. That is their stories. They went through that life. They had that experience. You have your own experience. But if you want to honor them, become the best when the person you are able to become. So that's very short about tradition. So we don't have any tradition, and in Christ made it very clear that no tradition. Of course, when we sit together or put on a candle sometimes in meditation, that is not quite tradition. That is more a way to go within, to reflect. That's slightly different.
It's interesting our timing, because here we are, as you say, Passover just, well, I think we're still in the middle of it, aren't we?
Yes.
And we have Easter upon us. And I always had a very hard time with this particular tradition when I was a kid, and really even into adulthood. Um, I I have a sense of why I have a hard time with it now, but let's talk about how we can sort of do both things. We can both honor the traditions, but stay in a soft, open place, not let them get so concretizing, and rigid. Um, and also this particular, I want to go stray 1 minute. When I went to Israel, I was very taken by the fact that every place where Jesus said this or did that, they've constructed a chapel or a big, massive church on top of it, as if to hold in the magic, you know? And after a while, it got to be kind of, I mean, I understand why that would be our human response to do that. And at the same time, I feel like when the mystical happens, it's not going to be contained. It can't be contained. And it can happen anywhere, anytime. And it doesn't make this soil more important than that soil, you know. So anyway, it kind of relates back to this idea of traditions, because we just tend to put a box around things, and I like to try to keep it much more open air, you know. So any thoughts on that?
Well, you're absolutely right. Yeah, particularly Easter. I can understand your apprehension here about this time. Here, the organized religion, which is not necessarily influenced by higher energy, has made it very clear, has given us two images of Christ. One, the little helpless baby at Christmas time, and then the dead body on the cross. These are two total loser images. There is no image of the Christ who has risen and gives us the power, the Son of God. We visually, it's in the, at least in the Catholic and the Lutheran Church, it's not there. It's only the two weakest images we can imagine.
Yeah.
And that is done on purpose, of course. They are really trying to keep because I am in control, as the church says. And so Christ's image, for instance, if we really think about who he was, what he does for us and did for us, is a glorious light being helping us every time, be with us if we want to, and is in us, in the Christ spark. I have a video on the Christ spark. We don't have to go into this video, but it's more explained in the video. So there we have this incredible energy with us, and we can surrender to this energy. And that's a great tradition, if we want to say it, to go within, to connect with divinity in us, because the whole universe is only in us. The kingdom of God is in you. It's not out there, it's in us. It's a very difficult concept to understand when we look outside and we think everything is around us. In truth, there is virtually nothing around us, really, because where does this image that we see, like, for instance, a computer screen, where do we see it? In our head, through our eyes, through electric kind of charges and chemical charges. Something happens in our brain that we suddenly see this picture. We don't even see the outside. It's a picture in our head. That's where we smell, whether we have got all the five senses are happening in our head. And that's where we are also having the source of life. That's where we get our energy. And that's how we can live if we focus on the positive.
Very true. Tell us all about, if you have any of your little videos, anything that in particular that was particularly challenging for you to put together.
They all are. That's the whole idea why I do it. That's the
But
whole idea.
one that you really had to chew on for a while.
Well, the one thing which I always find myself stumbling on the message, because I make this video for myself to remind myself. And I made one video is called Love It All. To really, that's because we are love by nature. That is our energy, our highest energy. By nature, we are eternal love. And we basically have forgotten that. And basically, our whole goal in life is basically to become that again and to love everything, which includes the negative, the illness, the war, the president, whoever you think of, who may give you sort of a negative feeling. And to really do that with love. And I start that video with that wonderful story of a Beauty and Beast, where Beauty is sort of serving this beast in the castle, and sort of he's very ugly and so on, and nobody likes him, is afraid of it. And until she finally finds out that by loving the beast, he turns into a prince. And so everything around us will turn into prince or princesses or in light when we love it. But I must be honest, Hope, that's my biggest challenge, to really love, particularly when people in your life are dear to you and so on, and you have got very strong opinions about them and how they should behave and they don't. And So that, if you ask me what is the most difficult thing, my inner voice said, well, Hans Wilhelm, remember your love video. That's the one you're still struggling with most.
Oh, but you're so courageous to actually put it out there as a beautiful reminder for everyone else, but especially for yourself. And but I think that is the great lesson of today. As we are being primed and pushed into divisiveness and taking a stand and being other or viewing somebody else as other, and more separation, right? We're being pushed into more and more separation, which is the opposite of the real truth, right? Of our oneness, of our connectivity. And so finding that place of love, even if you don't agree, even if you are afraid, and then fill in the blank. You know, that is the great challenge of today. That's our growth opportunity. That's how we're going to evolve through this. We aren't offered these opportunities to get angry and frustrated and even, you know, some people are violent. We're not offered these opportunities for us to necessarily take the bait. We're offered the opportunity to find another way around it, another way to relate. That's how we grow. And that's how, as souls, we evolve super quickly. So I don't know if you have feelings about that.
Yeah, I watched your wonderful video with Pam Gregory, and you covered such wonderful material as well, as particularly the future. And I think what you're saying refers particularly to the fact that in the future we will even may have more challenges to come. How will we deal with them? And that's, I think it's important that we somehow find a solid connection, what I say, to divinity, to the God within, to somebody or something higher than myself, that I can find that I find strength in, and I can also relate to, speak to, pray to, whatever the connection is. I find that very helpful, and I think that is sort of the for me the rock in that storm, which may or may not come. I don't know. Maybe it may not come. Maybe it just blows away. But at the moment, it doesn't look that way. So I found your, as I said, I found your video very helpful and very nice and very true. That we somehow have to learn. We have to find some tools to weather this storm. What are the tools that you suggest, except your wonderful infinity wave, which is definitely a great help in the meditation and calming yourself and finding strength? But are there any points which you feel very strong we should remember in case the storm gets stronger?
Oh, you're asking me. I'm asking you.
Oh.
I guess for me, honestly, the wave is so effective
Hmm.
at a variety of things, a long laundry list of things. And one of the things that I think it helps me with is what your video addressed. It's if I start to be reactive about something and I pull the wave into my being, into my heart, or wherever it's affecting me, I find that it puts me so quickly into a state of equanimity
Hmm.
and non-judgment. And
Hmm.
as soon as I'm there, then, you know, I can send the wave to anybody because I know I'm sending love and compassion in all directions, even if I don't understand what it is that is happening. You know, I can just blanket everything with that. And that keeps me in this state where I see what's happening, but I'm not in it. I'm not hooked. And I think, you know, it's very effective for that. So I pretty much rely on it. What do you rely
Right.
on?
I just, somebody sent me this wonderful quote yesterday. Ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. Don't let what's happening around you get inside you and weigh you down. I just love that quote because I think it is so appropriate at the moment when we hear so much negative news of not be affected, not to take this news inside of ourselves. We should be aware of it. We should know that there's something happening there, but we have to guard it, not to put it inside ourselves. Otherwise, we sink like the ship with full of water. I love this symbol. I mean, I'm a visual person. I'm an illustrator, so that kind of quote works for me.
I love that quote too, and I came across it a while back, and I thought, oh, that is so simple and so perfect.
Yeah.
No, I agree completely. Um, well, what are you working on next?
Well, right now I have, I'm just making sort of, I came across a wonderful book. I don't have it here. It's Elysium Unveiled by Jürgen Sieve, which Jürgen Sieve is also an illustrator, and he has, for 50 years, he has a body, out of a body experiences. And he's also yeah, as an illustrator, he now, with the help of AI, has made a wonderful big book where he recreates the images of all his visits in the spiritual realms and
Oh,
and the
wow.
hell into highest region and so on. It's a magnificent book, and I'm just sort of making a little book review on that one because I would love to share it with other people because it is helpful. Jürgen has been doing that for 50 years. I've read some of his other books, which he published before, but now for the first time, he comes out with a book with all these images. So I will probably launch that video tomorrow if everything works well. But so that was at the moment I'm working on. And then from week to week, whatever interests me comes up and says, oh, this is a great topic. So I'll do that as well. But meanwhile, I'm also working on other books for children. So I'm not totally ignoring that field. That is basically where my income is. The other one is just only my fun and expenses.
Got it. And Hans, when your father came to you through that medium, but have you had, do you feel like you're visited and that your hand is sometimes guided by other forces? Do you hear things or get direction from elsewhere?
It's a good question. I usually don't speak about it. Yes, I do have. I feel very much being guided, and I also do some writings. When I've got a question, I start with a question, and by the end of that page, I have the answer. So I definitely have guidance. I don't know whether it's my guardian spirit, whether it's my higher self, Christ, or anybody else. It doesn't matter. The main thing is that I know I'm not alone and I can find the answer. But all the stuff which I find is for myself. I do not share this information with others because that's for me, etc. I'm not a prophet. I'm not anybody who has got something to say which is not coming from the highest field. Well, I know coming from the highest field. So I keep it to myself. But over the years, yes, I think it happens for most people who are keeping meditate in a meditative state for years and so on. Eventually, this thing opens up, what I
Yes.
find, and I'm sure it has happened with you as well. You have got also helpers on the other side who speak through you and with you, and but you do it more openly and more publicly, and you have got probably a more direct connection with them, and your purpose is different than mine.
Well, first of all, I agree with you that I really think that we all have the capacity, and we just, it's question of, how much we are willing to put that time in or whatever. And sometimes it happens just just in a moment. All of a sudden there's a lightning bolt. And I wasn't always so public about it. I pretty much kept it to myself for a long time and didn't dare come out. But during COVID, um, I I wanted to do something. I wanted to give something, to the people who I was writing to all the week, this community, and all I could think of, what can I offer? I can't, drive around and hand out medicine. So I thought, well, I can offer meditations.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that on a weekly basis, but they were meditations that I already had in my roster, so to speak. I already knew them. And then very, very subtly, the meditations would start to change their direction or their tone, or something would happen. It was so subtle, and it took place over a series of months. And then in one meditation, it was announced who was speaking. And nobody could have been more shocked than I was, because I was worried, about channeling publicly. And so they came in through the back door and did it so gently and kindly that next thing I knew, kind of like getting on off the training wheels and being on a bicycle. Before I knew it, I was doing that. I still don't take it for granted, but it is something that I very much enjoy and learn from every single time. So I figured that you must have something working through you as well, because your messages are so pure, and they're simple, but they're deeply wise. And I think the most wise things are simple. That's why they said the wave is simple.
Yeah, simplicity, yeah. Well, I must say that what I share in my videos does come from Gabriele, and that's usually the source of the simplicity and clarity. I merely illustrate and draw it, but I believe that I'm doing it with some help from the other side, because the responses of these videos underneath are showing that they're touching something in people which they always knew, but nobody had really shown it to them and explained it to them in this way. And suddenly they have got this aha feeling. Oh my God, this is for the first time. I suddenly understand. The same as I did when I first time heard reincarnation and karma. Some of these videos are the same eye opener and brain opener or heart opener for many of these viewers.
Let's do this. I'm going to open it up to people to ask questions early, because I have a sense that people will want to ask you about your thoughts on a variety of topics. Maybe they want to ask you about reincarnation or whatever. So I'm gonna let everybody, if you'd like to ask Hans a question. He really has a library on all these topics, and with his videos, and they're very thorough. So Judy, what would you like to ask?
What were the hints that you told your father?
Oh, what was the hint? Well, let me think. First of all, there is no such thing like death. We are not, our mind, our consciousness is not eliminated. This is actually one of the most surprising things when souls wake up on the other side, that they are not dead. And we still have a body after death. It's not a physical body, it's a spiritual body, very different, but we're still breathing in a different fashion. And now we can't hide anything from each other. Through our spiritual body, or we are totally, how shall I say, we are visible. It's like telepathy. We see everybody else. We see what they think, what they feel. We cannot hide, which is quite a surprising thing as well. We still have also our same character, our same personality, opinion. We have our own traits. We have got our what shall I say, our curses. We have got our vices. If we are an alcoholic, he is an alcoholic after death and wants to have his alcohol after death. So this does not change. And we're also not wiser only because we are dead. If we are stupid in this world, we're also stupid on the other side. So that doesn't count. And most of the stuff which we thought was so important on our planet Earth is unimportant. It's only service and love which actually matters. And that is also a sobering realization for many souls, and probably for myself too, when I wake on the other side up and says, oh, I was there for service and love, not for making money, making fame, and making videos. So, and then, of course, there are the beings of light, which usually greet us, not always. Everybody has a different death experience, but these are sort of the basic things which most of them go through. So there may be a little welcoming committee, some souls of family members who have died before, or can be angelic beings who greet us. There can be our friends, our relatives. Yes, even our pets are coming there. The surrounding may be very similar, like here on planet Earth. It may be not much different. That's why some souls don't even believe they are dead, because the homes, the places, the environment, etc., is very similar. Not the same, but very similar. Then, of course, we have our life review where we will, in one way or the other, experience all the things we have felt, said, done, and thought. We are facing ourselves, all the harm we have done to others, we will experiencing on ourselves, not as punishment, but only as a teaching tool, that we suddenly see the other side of our actions. And then we will eventually be pulled through the sphere which vibrates to our present vibration, energy vibration, because everything is energy. The whole universe is nothing but energy and vibrations. And we are vibrating kind of entities. And the way we behave here on our planet, on planet Earth, in our earthly lives, is a vibration. That vibration it corresponds to some vibration in the astral worlds and the other planets, and that's where we get drawn to. Like attracts like in the spiritual world. So that's where we'll be surrounded by like-minded souls like ourselves, very similar, and eventually probably will grow from there, or in some cases reincarnate again if we want to. But reincarnation is not the desire of divinity. It was given to us as an opportunity to clear up our karma in the fastest possible way. The idea of constant reincarnations, which many of us have done 100,000 times sometimes, is not the idea. We can actually clear up most of it in one lifetime, because our soul burden, which we have put on our pure soul when we left the heaven, we can clear up in one or few lifetimes here by actually doing nothing else than the 10 Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount, which includes like love your neighbor, like yourself, love your enemy, and the golden rule, do unto others as you want to do unto themselves. No secrets. Again, simplicity, utter simplicity. The 10 Commandments and the golden rule and the Sermon on the Mount are the simple ways to free ourselves from our karmic burden and thus no longer need to incarnate here to planet Earth. That was a very long answer, Judy. I'm sorry. Does it answer it? If not,
That was
No,
beautiful. Absolutely
definitely.
beautiful.
Thank you. I have one more question also. Hope said that she wasn't in contact with you, but kept in contact through some sort of words that you give every day, or what is that?
no, Hope mentioned that she is receiving my newsletters. If you
Okay,
go
and
to
how
my,
can we do that?
you go to my website, lifeexplained.com, lifeexplained.com, and there on the contact, or there's a little thing, newsletter subscription. And
Excellent.
so once a month, I don't bother people with it much. Once a month, whenever I have a new little video, I send it out, and that's how Hope stayed in contact with me. So if anybody wishes to subscribe, you can also write to me. I answer not always right away. Sometimes takes a few days because I get a lot of letters, but I'm happy to answer any question people still may have, if I can.
Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome,
Judy,
Judy.
when you go, or everybody, if you go to Hans's website, you'll see that there's this library of all the different videos, and
Yeah.
and then you'll be able to just I remember a couple times over the years I've gone in there and just watched 3 or 4, especially if I was having my own, I was trying to figure something out, in those realms, and I was trying to make sense of it. I'd go and I'd look at your library. Well, what does Hans say about this?
Well, there's of course the YouTube channel as well. I do have this website as well as my YouTube channel. And there you punch in my name under search, and there immediately comes up the Life Explained video channel, where you can see all the videos which I have made, and also in different order, and find them as well. Maybe that's for some easier. But to subscribe, you have to come to lifeexplained.com.
Okay, I put that in the chat, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have a question for Hans? Come on, come on. You know you do. Well, how about this? How about, since you showed the card in the beginning about karma, let's talk about karma just a little bit.
Well, let's make a little bit of it is my understanding that we are all pure, perfect beings. We are created in the image of God. We don't have from the lump of meat grow into some spiritual person. We have been spiritual, angelic beings in the absolute reality. And as the Bible says, and I don't usually use the Bible, but because there's so many distortions in there, but they speak about the fall of angels.
Mhm.
And that means that a number of angels, some say a third of spiritual beings, left the absolute reality to make their own creation, led by Lucifer. And this is not only in the Bible, this is also in the Sumerian text and in a lot of ancient texts. So the fact that some total perfect spirit beings have left the absolute reality is mentioned in many, many kind of sacred texts. By doing so, they had entered a temporary reality, and that temporary reality consists of space and time, which does not exist in the absolute reality, as well as the law of karma, the sowing and reaping, also does not exist in the absolute reality, because in the absolute reality, we have only a permanent now with no past and no future. Now, these souls have removed themselves through their selfishness, which means they are acted, spoke, and handled against their own who they were. They were love. And they have suddenly shadowed themselves with all negativity, with selfishness, the me law. And the more selfish these souls became, the more they removed themselves away from the absolute reality up to the furthest space, which is the material universe. Again, the material universe is nothing but vibration, like the absolute reality. We're only speaking about vibrational and an energy kind of universe, existence. Even the rock, the stone, the atom is nothing but vibration. There is no such matter in there. It's all vibration. So some souls have moved into the very fallen one in the absolute reality. Now, to return back to the absolute reality, which most of the spirit beings are now on the way back because they've realized they made a mess and it didn't work, we have to undo our karma. We have to let go of the soul burden. And divinity gave us the opportunity to do this in the shortest possible time. I've mentioned earlier that when we die, we are attracted to the realm which corresponds to our vibration, where we are among like-minded other spirit beings, highly evolved or low evolved, whatever they are. But here, planet Earth is a very unique planet where souls from all different consciousness can come together, which is totally unusual. Because here the highest evolved person can be your neighbor, as well as the lowest evolved person can be your neighbor. And suddenly we are interacting with souls from all different consciousness levels. And that really expands our mind, blows our mind. Suddenly we see somebody doing Muslim tradition, some capitalism, etc. And whatever you can think of, people do in this planet. And we now have a lot of choices. We suddenly see things differently, and we can maybe do things differently. And our goal is to undo our karma, to return back to love. For that, we have been given the Ten Commandments, the Sermon on the Mount, and the Golden Rule. And these very simple rules help us to undo our karma. And most, of course, the most powerful one is that of forgiveness. To forgive the person who has harmed us totally and ask for forgiveness to whom we have hurt, and make amends if possible. The moment there was true forgiveness, that karma is eliminated. That soul burden is gone. God cannot forgive us if the other person has not forgiven us. It's a very important point. He would be acting against the free will because we have the free will. The mess we got ourselves in is because we abused our free will. So the karma is something which we have done over time through our selfishness. Here on planet Earth, we have the opportunity to undo our karma. Love is, of course, the most positive action, to love everyone. And that means that implies also to forgive and to be of help and of service. So that's in a nutshell. Does it answer your answer, Hope? Is there
Yes,
anything else?
yes. I think that you said something very interesting. I want to make sure I heard it right. Did you say God can't forgive us if we are not forgiven by somebody we transgressed against?
Right. if two people are still there is unforgiveness. The moment we do some harm to another person, we bind ourselves with change to that soul.
Right.
And that lingers on from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. But only when we forgive each other is this bondage broken and taken away. God cannot, if God would do that, interfere, he would interfere with the free will of the person who doesn't want to forgive.
Mm.
He cannot do that. The
Mm.
person who is still angry with us, he has to be respected. That is his choice. And we are, unfortunately, depending on that person who is unwilling to forgive us. This should maybe make us think a little bit more, to be more careful in future of doing negative things to upset people. But that is a very clear law, he says, that this is, I cannot forgive, I cannot interfere with the free will of that person. I can only forgive you both when you forgive each other. And then it's totally gone, that karma. It doesn't exist anymore. But you have to do that yourself. That's why Christ came. That's why he said, forgive each other 70 times 7. Because it is not easy to forgive only once with our mind, but it should go a little bit deeper to our soul, to our heart.
Absolutely. I received a forgiveness practice many years ago from a feminine counsel, and it was incredibly powerful. And what I learned in that process was there's kind of a layer cake of that is really forgiveness. It's not the way we're taught is, I forgive you. I'm sort of up here, you're down there, you lowly being, and there's
Yes.
this hierarchy, and
Yes.
that's not going to do it. That's superficial forgiveness.
Yeah,
Forgiveness happens, first of all, you have to get yourself on an even playing field, which means even the person who is doing the forgiving needs to admit the thing, the imperfection that they are. I know that I have hurt people in whatever it is, to just realize you are an imperfect being, I am an imperfect being, and in that sense we are equals. And now I can start to do the forgiveness from a much more humble place, much more vulnerable place. It's a completely different dynamic.
You're absolutely right. Yes, I have a video on forgiveness, and this includes it as well, that we are, the traditional forgiveness is from superiority.
Mm-hmm.
I forgive you because, well, you were wrong, but I was better. And that's,
Exactly.
this doesn't work. And you're absolutely right there. There is a danger in that. There's a wonderful book called Radical Forgiveness, which I really
Yes.
love as well, which I recommend there also as well. Because once you do that, it really suddenly opens up. Your whole life can change rather instantly if we are absolutely ready to do a radical forgiveness.
I agree. I love that book. Claire, what would you like to ask?
Okay. On forgiveness. So I have a late ex-husband, and I recognized at some point that I tried to forgive. I'm the one that left him, etc. But I tried to forgive, and it wasn't working. And finally, when I understood that by not being able to forgive him, I was keeping him bound to me, and therefore it could never happen. So I finally reached the point where I could, from my heart, forgive, and recognizing that I can't talk to him in person. And so what Hans is saying is, if he doesn't forgive me back, even though he's on the other side, I'm still locked into him. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Yes, in a way, yes. However, the
Okay.
fact that somebody has died on the other side does not mean that we cannot really make a change with the forgiveness. And Gabriele reminds us, go to Christ, ask him, not directly to the soul who is on the other side, because it could bind you to the soul. Ask him as an intermediate for the forgiveness, that the other person forgives us, because Christ has a power to soften his heart. And that he is allowed to do. Christ can put the person in situation that they suddenly realize. This very often happens when somebody doesn't want to forgive. They suddenly land in a similar situation where suddenly they are the ones who have to ask for forgiveness for somebody else, and then they realize this. So we understand from the teachings I have received that Christ is there to help us. He can soften the hearts of the other soul on the other side so that they will forgive. And I think that is a very powerful image, because he is part of God and sort of is a powerful entity. So even if the person is on the other side, it doesn't mean that we are stuck now in the situation. With Christ's help, we can make definite changes in our relationship with that person.
Beautiful.
Makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Claire.
You know, this brings up also, when we talk about Christ, I am assuming that we are talking about the love, light, force, energy, Christ consciousness. We're not necessarily talking about Jesus the man. We're talking about the energy. So I just wanted to clarify for everybody.
But we can also see him as an entity, not anymore as a Jesus, but as the entity, what we call Son of God. Again, these are all energies we are working with here, but everybody has a different kind of closeness or image of it. But it is a helpful energy to use if we have a connection with that, and it's here to help us and is here to free us. And if we watch the video on the Christ spark, which is an interesting thing, which again the churches don't tell us. Rudolf Steiner spoke about it and others spoke about it, but the churches don't, that when he died, he gave part of his inheritance as a spark of redemption into the heart of every soul in the lower four astral spheres. And that spark of redemption is actually the one which stopped the further degeneration of the chakras, the undoing of evolution, of creation. It's a bit complicated to do that here. When you see it in a video, it's very clear, because we had fallen so deeply, mankind, or let's say the fallen souls have fallen so deeply that it was at a point that all of creation was unraveling. And he stopped it through his sacrifice on Golgotha, and he stopped the reversing of the chakras, which would be the undoing of creation. And therefore, this spark which is in us is also the helping. We can go into the spark. We can sort of surround ourselves in that spark and pray in it and feel in it and feel that energy in us. So that is a very supportive energy things which has happened at Easter time. And I found it very powerful. But again, explaining it is a bit difficult for me always. I can draw it better.
No, you did a very good job.
Video.
You did a very good job. Teilhard de Chardin talked about the God spark.
Yeah, the God spark is up here.
Oh.
The God spark is at the pituitary gland, the way I understand. So the God spark comes the energy into our soul, going down on the left side of our whole spine and to the various chakras and coming up again. The God spark is the center of our soul, basically. We all have the God spark. We always had that God spark. That is a part of the divinity in all of us. You're right, yeah.
All right, Leslie, what would you like to ask?
Hi. I was told about a dream where my father was preaching from the altar at my childhood church. My brother-in-law had the dream, and he knows my dad, grew up with my dad. My dad had his arms like this, and he said, don't drink alcohol, because this is what it did to me. And he had IVs in his arms. I think I'm wondering, because you just said that if we were an alcoholic in life, then we were an alcoholic in death, after death. So that was one really technical question, but what I really want to know is, I forgive my dad. And thank you for saying all that, because I didn't realize how much I needed to and wanted to. So, but then we went into the cafeteria or the reception hall and everybody was gambling, shooting craps. Okay, so drinking's not allowed, but gambling is. Okay.
Everything is allowed, Leslie. Everything. We have got a free will. It is only the cravings when it controls us and we don't control it.
Okay.
That's where the problem is. I mean, we can have a glass of wine and so on, but if we have to have 3 glasses or 5 glasses of wine, the wine controls us. It's like everything. It's a two-edged sword. I mean, too much water can drown. No water, we can't live. So it's always the right medium in every way. But yes, he was right. I mean, our cravings do not end when we die, and therefore it helps us if now to look at our cravings, our needs. And these cravings don't necessarily have to be drugs. They can be also craving for approval, craving for that people fulfill our expectations. There are a lot of different forms of cravings, what we expect from other people to do. And that can be very strong. Some elderly people can be very bitches and really nasty in their way, what they expect the world should be. That is a form of craving as well. And that doesn't go away. That goes with us. These are all patterns we have to become aware of and try to overcome them as much as possible. And I always believe that if we turn to the inner light, to inner Christ, there is a strength. Again, it's so simple. It is so nothing special. I don't know what the word is, but yeah, it comes back to the very simple things always in life. Go to the rock which is inside, to the light inside, because everything outside is an illusion. It doesn't even exist really. The only thing exists is the life, the divinity in us, in me, and in you. And if I acknowledge it in myself and acknowledge it in you, we are in the best of terms and nothing can really happen to us because we are connecting on the highest possible level.
Thank you. I can't wait to hear the recording because my mind isn't comprehending everything you're saying, but like you just said earlier, I will have to read it 3 times before I completely understand what I'm reading because there's no interpreter. It's just the teaching and you. I think you were talking about the Sophia Library when you said that earlier. But thank you very much.
You're welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Well, let's see if anybody else would like to ask a question at all. I think this has been just a wonderful conversation and just really spoke to the heart of all of us. And I'm so happy that you decided to come and be my guest this month. Anybody else before we sign off? And of course, this will be shared with my next my Sunday newsletter. It'll go out and everybody else will get a chance to watch it, which is great. They'll be sorry they missed it. All right, I think we're good. I thank you, Hans. Such a pleasure to be with you. And I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you.